question, Jay. Look, I was first involved when I was in mid-December told of the Prime Minister's decision to make a political appointment as ambassador, and that political appointment was Peter Mandelson. So that was when I was first involved. It was the first I was aware of the decision was when I was told on the 15th of December. The first I was aware of the advice that had gone to the Prime Minister, or indeed that it was being formulated, was when I read it in the Humble Address release papers. I wasn't involved. I wasn't told a decision was coming. On the face of it, it is reasonable for the head of the Foreign Office to be involved in thinking around what is our major top bilateral ambassador post. On the other hand, given clearly the Prime Minister was deciding to make a political appointment, I think it is also reasonable that civil servants would not be directly involved in discussions around what is a political appointment, because in the end that is a matter for elected politicians, and I can also see the sensitivity. So I'm a bit conflicted. I mean, clearly, I think ideally you want to have a situation where there is a tight and small circle of people who can be consulted on a big decision like this on a basis of trust.
I just wanted to check with you. I mean, obviously, despite being head of the diplomatic service, you obviously hadn't been asked by Number 10 or the Prime Minister directly or indirectly your view on Peter Mandelson's suitability for the role. Had you been, would you have wanted to raise, or would you have said you had concerns about the reputational risks that he carried?
I think that is genuinely a really hard question to answer, because hindsight is a fantastically wonderful thing, and it is hypothetical. But let me have a go at what I was thinking at the time. And firstly, it's just worth repeating. At no point did anyone consult me, ask me. I was presented with a decision. There was no space, and told to get on with it. There was no space for dialogue. You know that. I think, look, it is the most important job we have. I had been deputy ambassador. I knew the US well from 10 years previously, and obviously worked a lot on the United States throughout my diplomatic career. So I think I had a sense and an understanding of US politics, which gave me an idea of what might or might not be a problem further down the track. And so I had a concern at the time, was a part of me that had a concern at the time that I don't know anything that wasn't in the public domain. Obviously we know now a lot more about Mandelson's links to Epstein, but I had a concern that a man who demonstrably from the public record at the time, and it's clearly much bigger than we all knew, had a link to Epstein, and that Epstein, through both the presidential election campaign in the US and more generally in US politics, had been and was a controversial figure. And I was worried that this could become a problem in future, not because I was expecting that we were going to find out more, because to be honest I wasn't, and who would necessarily know, but much more I just thought that it was a potentially difficult issue politically in the United States. So that is a very candid account of probably what I was thinking at the time. But there was no space or avenue or mechanism for me to put that on the table. A decision had been taken, and it was a political decision.
I mean, you mentioned, of course, the links to Jeffrey Epstein, which were in the media at the time. Did you have concerns about Mandelson's business relationships with China or Russia?
So please don't laugh, but I really didn't actually follow what Mandelson was up to in his business relationships. I kind of knew about him when he was a government minister, so I didn't sort of have it right in front of my face, and I didn't see the due diligence report. What the details of those were
about Dame Karen Pierce being moved on from the post?
Well, I mean, there's quite a lot already in the public tweet from someone close to Trump, reminding people of what Mandelson had said about Trump many years before when he was president previously. I think those around Trump felt blindsided by the announcement at short notice, shall we say, and it was clear also that Karen and her team had done an excellent job in establishing relationships and access to President-elect Trump, and also when he was a candidate, doing their jobs. That's a hard thing to do, particularly in the political climate in the US, while maintaining good relations with the current administration. And Trump, has, again, on the record, had said that he liked Karen and worked well with her and be happy for her to stay. So that's a rather long-winded way of saying yes.
Thank you.
On the discussions that were had in government the year before about Lord Mandelson's appointment, and he reflected that that you, Sir Philip, had reservations. Can you remember what you were saying to the National Security Advisor about your reservations around appointing Lord Mandelson back in 2024?
I think it was very much along the lines of what I just said around the possibility of his known connection to Epstein causing an issue subsequently. Obviously, I didn't know what was actually going to happen because Epstein was such a toxic hot potato subject in US politics itself, including in the election campaign. So that is what I recall thinking at the time, and I can't prove this because I don't know what Jonathan was thinking when he said it last September, but my instinct is that's what it refers to.
Okay. And then thinking later on that year about the Number 10 operation, do you recall any dismissiveness in Number 10 about the importance of vetting, and if so, how was that communicated to you?
I wouldn't use the word dismissive. The word I would use is uninterested. I think people wanted to know that all the practical steps required for Mandelson to arrive in Washington on or around, by or around the inauguration date needed to be completed, at pace, as it were, and that was it. The interest. I mean, no one, to be honest with you, no one said to me, "Look, Philip, the Prime Minister knows there's some risks around this. Can you really make sure that the vetting's done rigorously?" I mean, it's always rigorous anyway, but that wasn't the sort of thing being communicated. The sort of thing was, fine, he needs vetting, make sure it's done in time.
Okay, thank you. Last week when Sir Ollie gave evidence to the committee, I said that Sam Coates had reported words around "just to prove it," and I need to correct the record slightly because Sam Coates didn't actually report that. He didn't file a report. He did discuss it with a member of this committee. He didn't actually put it in writing. It didn't get off the cutting room floor. But it doesn't take away from the fact that his reply made plain that he had a strong sense that there was an atmosphere of pressure and a certain dismissiveness about this developed vetting. Could you comment on that atmosphere of pressure as you understood it in late 2024?
Can I just say one thing about the non-reported phone call and use of a particular word? I think it's important. I say this. Look, firstly, I didn't receive any direct calls from the Chief of Staff during my time as Permanent Undersecretary, so there was no call at all. So my interactions with him were always when others were present in a general meeting. There weren't very many of those either. This story or versions of it has been in the media persistently or floating around the media since last September. There's different versions, sometimes involving a swear word, sometimes not. And I've really racked my brains, and I cannot recall Morgan Sweeney swearing in a meeting at me, or indeed just in general. And so I don't see any substance in that part of it. And I think it's important I say that this morning, given how many people have come to think that might be true. In not answering your question, I've slightly forgotten what your actual question was. I know I didn't answer it. I did that on purpose. But can you just the headline at the end of your question? Sorry.
So Ollie, when replying last week, said that there was an atmosphere of pressure and a certain dismissiveness about this DV process, and I wondered if you could comment on the atmosphere of pressure, please.
I think where I would start is, on the 18th of December, I received a letter from the Principal Private Secretary to the Prime Minister, and it's the one released as part of the humble address. I haven't received letters from the Principal Private Secretary to the Prime Minister very often. Most of my dealings was with the Foreign Affairs team in the number 10, as you'd expect. And the letter, as you know, basically says the Prime Minister has decided. And it then goes on to say, please could arrangements be put in place, was to that effect, for a handover by the inauguration, a very compressed timescale, and that in effect is the top of the government saying the Prime Minister has decided he wants Mandelson's ambassador and he wants it done in that timescale. So that is what creates the pressure. There were conversations around progress. But I think no one in the FCDO working on this can have been any doubt of the urgency of the issue and the importance that number 10 and the Prime Minister attached to Mandelson being in DC in very short order.
Can I help you? On page
Yes.
22 of the bundle that's in front of you, the letter is there.
Yeah, no, I've got, thanks, Joe. I've got the letter. I mean, it's clear. I mean, it's clear. Please would you take forward the necessary arrangements at pace. We would like to secure agreement as soon as possible, the formal agreement of the US government, as it were.
Read the end of the sentence.
As soon as possible to enable a handover in advance of the US inauguration.
In advance of the US inauguration.
Yeah, at that point, that was the ambition at the start.
He's given the job on the 20th of December, and they want him at the US inauguration on the 20th of January.
Correct.
So you have a month.
Yes.